intelligence, beauty, and nobility are only a few qualities that can introduce this extraordinary woman. She was praised for her generosity, tolerance, and her actions were heartwarming. Her name was Safiyya Bint Hunayy. Join us for another installation in this extraordinary series Heroines of Islam, hosted by Layla Nashiba, every Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Sunnah Followers.
Okay, inshallah, everybody can hear me, and we can click this thing to get started. I'm sorry. Okay, hold on, let me get this here too. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, now inshallah we should be ready. In alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series of the Heroines of Islam. Our series of the Heroines of Islam. And what is this series all about? Well, it's quite simple. This is the series where, as we delve into the lives of the female companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we speak about how these great heroines, left behind an example of how we should be as Muslims in regards to our faith and practice. And I began this series by going over the different wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they were the greatest females of all. And we started off with Khadija radiallahu anha, and how she was the epitome of strength, the epitome of faith, to the point that she's the second most perfect woman ever created. And then we did the story of Sauda, which was a story of sacrifice. How once you convert to this religion, just because you say that you believe in Allah is not enough. You're going to have to make sacrifices. And she sacrificed everything, including her love for her husband, just to be a woman of paradise. And then we did the story of Aisha radiallahu anha, the story of how love and marriage is a push and pull. And then we did the story of Hafsa, which illustrates how marriage, if you want to have a successful marriage, a successful relationship with anyone, we have to learn how to control the condition of ourselves and change the condition of ourselves. And then we did the story of Zainab, who was only married to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 2 months. But her marriage united a whole tribe of people and brought them to Islam. And then after her, we did the story of Salama, the lioness of Allah. She was the cousin of Khalid bin Walid. The Prophet made dua for her, asking Allah to free her heart of the female drama, free her heart of jealousy for other women, and make her heart content. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam found solace and peace and comfort in her. And also she was an intelligent woman. She was a strategist, and she was a warrior, and she became his war counselor. Okay. And then we did the story of Zainab radiallahu anha, who was the first cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was 37 years old when she married the Prophet. She was a virgin up until she was 36. Her family saved her for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They saved her and kept her from marriage in order for him to marry. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sacrificed his want for her and gave it to his adopted son in hopes of trying to show the people that social status is of no bearing in Islam. But after that proved to not work, Allah married her to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we did the story of Juwayriya. And now we're going to do the story of Safiyya radiallahu anha. Now, just so everybody knows, Safiyya, she was the only non-Arabic wife that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. All his wives were Arab except for her. Safiyya, and it's really amazing how we come to her story during these most tragic times that we're faced with today. Safiyya was a Jew. She was Jewish. She was Hebrew. And his marriage to her brought about a lot of issues. And unfortunately, Safiyya, when we examine her life, when we examine her marriage, when we examine her relationship, her story is a story of struggle, a story of struggle. How even though you can be with people who claim to believe the same as you, that wala wal bara doesn't exist. She's an example of how, as Muslims, we're constantly struggling in our allegiance with each other. As Muslims, it's hard for us to unite with all who bear witness to La ilaha illallah, because many of us still have hang-ups. We have hatred in our heart against others that impacts us in our relationship. And it's really amazing. Like I said, Allah is in control of this website, that we come upon her story. And we're going to probably be on her story for a couple of weeks. And I'm hoping that the Muslims around the world will listen to the story of Safiyya, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and see how we need to do away with that emotionalism, do away with that anger, do away with that hatred, because it will cause us to transgress, and instead replace these evil emotions that come from Shaitan with empathy and compassion. Because Safiyya suffered more than anyone. The simple fact that she was a real Jew who converted to Islam, people didn't trust her. People abused her. As Aisha radiallahu anha herself said, no one experienced more abuse from their fellow Muslim brothers and sisters other than Safiyya. because the people just didn't accept the fact that she was a Muslim despite being Hebrew or Jewish. So I want you guys to pay attention to her story. And I want you guys to learn from her experiences that as Muslims, until we gain control over our emotions and balance it out, until we learn to love for the sake of Allah and only hate for the sake of Allah, we'll never be successful. And we'll end up hurting people that we shouldn't hurt. And then as Aisha radiallahu anha herself says, you will find yourself later feeling so bad about the things you've done to this person that you will even find it hard to live with yourself. But thank God, Aisha radiallahu anha, she said she was able to seek forgiveness from Safiyya before Safiyya died, and Safiyya forgave her. Okay? But there's a lot of people that weren't interested in seeking forgiveness for what they said to her or how they treated her during her lifetime. Earlier today, for my 6 o'clock class, I gave you guys a little bit of history. I reminded you guys that Allah doesn't place a burden on us that we can't handle. I reminded you guys that this is the time to put aside all that emotionalism and instead learn your deen and work on developing yourself into a strong, believing Muslim. And I reminded you guys that what's going on in Palestine today, what's going on in Israel today is nothing new. This is nothing new. This stuff has been going on since after Solomon. This stuff has been going on since the time of Jacob, alayhi salam. So this is nothing new for those people over there. Okay? It may be new for some of you, but it's not new for them. And I'm going to show you how this has been an ongoing struggle since the time of Solomon, alayhi salam. And our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, said that struggle, that victory will never come until Jesus, alayhi salam. There's nothing that you, nor I, nor anyone else on this planet can do to change the qadr of Allah. There's nothing you nor I can do to stop history from happening because the book has been sealed and the pen has been empty for centuries. Okay? So like I said earlier today, it's all about you and I accepting the qadr of Allah. You and I being a patient with the qadr of Allah. You and I becoming in submission to the qadr of Allah. And just understand it's not going to play out until Jesus, alayhi salam. So let's begin the story of Safiyya. And this will give you some history. This will shed upon you tonight. We will shed upon you some history about what's been going on in that part of the world since Solomon. But this is the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember, guys, how do we learn to handle the trials of life? Our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us how to handle those trials. All we have to do is learn what he taught us. We have to seek knowledge from the proper people, the proper sources. He taught us what to do in these times of struggle. And he left his example behind. So let's see how the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his companions, let's see how they handled war. How did they handle Muslims being killed? How did they handle the children dying? How did they handle being outnumbered 10-1? How did they handle the calamities of war? So let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. Okay, let me share my screen. All right. Did I open it up? Okay, hold on. Cat's in the way. Got my cats in the way. I'm sorry. Okay, let's put the PowerPoint up. Get this out of here. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be part 1 because her story is so complex, so much history in her marriage to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this will be part 1 of the saga of her marriage, and I call it the saga of her marriage. And for those of you who don't know, Safiyya, radiallahu anha, she was Jewish, she was Hebrew, and she was the daughter of a prophet, alayhi salam. Oh, let's talk about it. Safiyya's father was a man named Huyay ibn Akhtab. He was the leader of the Jewish tribe of Nadir. Now, for the kids that's in my Sunnahfollowers kids class, Sister Sabrina, we just went over this past weekend what happened with the tribe of Nadir. You know, well, Safiyya's father was the leader of that tribe. And her mother was a woman named Bara Bint Samuel. See, they were Jewish. They were Hebrews. They were real Jews, full-blooded. Her mother was Bara, the daughter of Samuel. And she was the daughter of the leader of another Jewish tribe known as the tribe of Qurayza. Okay? Qurayza. So because of who her mother and father was, Safiyya was an inheritor of leadership, just like Khadijah was. She was a woman of good status. She was a woman of respect. She was a woman who inherited, you know, the honor of respect because of who her parents were. Okay? And her ancestors stretched back to Prophet Moses and Aaron. She was a granddaughter, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us in an authentic hadith in Sahih Bukhari. He said she is the granddaughter of Aaron, who was the brother of Moses. Aaron was a prophet, and so was Moses. So Moses was her uncle. And also, she was a descendant of Jacob, alayhi salam, because all of them are descendants of Jacob. So her blood was filled with nothing but leadership. And that's why she was respected amongst the Jews. The Jews respected her and her family because they were the descendants of Prophet Jacob. and Moses and Aaron. Before she married the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she had been married 2 times. Her first husband was a man who was a Jewish poet. His name was Salim bin Mishkam. And he was a very respectable man of his tribe. But she didn't stay married to him long. They ended up divorced for whatever reasons. Like I tell you guys, divorce is good and clean. It's good and clean. Everything Allah made lawful is good and clean. After they divorced, she married her second husband. And her second husband was the commander of the Camus castle. His name was Kinana ibn Rabi. Okay? So all her husbands were Hebrew, were Jewish like her. And again, Safiyya is the only Jewish descendant of the wives of the prophets. All the other wives were Arabs, including Maryam. We're going to talk about Maryam too. She was Arabic too. Okay? Safiyya wasn't her real name. Safiyya was not her real name. Safiyya is not a Jewish name. Her real name was Zainab. Her real name was Zainab. And she converted to Islam before she married the Prophet. And I want to stress that because there are some Muslims out there today, let's talk about it, who sit around on YouTube speaking about this deen without knowledge, saying that the Prophet married a Jewish woman and he married a Christian woman. Meaning that he let one of his wives was Jewish and practiced Judaism, and the other was Christian. And you're lying and slandering 2 of the wives of the Prophet, 2 of the mothers of the believers. None of the Prophet's wives were kafir. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not marry a kafir. He didn't have no kafir wife. Kafir means unbeliever. All of his wives were Muslim. Safiyya converted to Islam before the Prophet married her, just like Maria did too. And we'll talk about her in a later class. Stop slandering these companions. They were not kafir, none of them. Okay? So she converted to Islam before she married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And let me tell you how she got the name Safiyya. Back in those days, these were the medieval dark ages. I tell you guys, whenever a tribe or a country or a city fought against another tribe, country, or city, the victor would take the spoils of war. That means all the houses, property, women, children would go to the victor. Well, at the time that the Prophet fought against her people, the share of the war booty that fell in Arabia was called Safi. Safi. And since she was part of the war booty and that share fell to the Prophet Muhammad, they called her Safiyya. Safiyya. So that's how she got the name. But her real name was Zainab. Okay, but she got the name Safiyya because she was part of the war booty that fell to Arabia as a result of, winning against her tribe. Safiyya. Okay, so now let's go into her life, and then I'll talk about her marriage next time. But let's go into what happened, the events that led up to it. And again, this is why history is so important. nowadays Muslims don't have no knowledge, many of them, of history. We have to know the history of Islam. We have to know the history of Islam, and you're never going to learn the history of Islam until you learn the hadiths. And many of you are too old to learn the hadiths. You got to start them off when they're 6 years old and find a scholar of hadith to teach you. The scholars of hadith are few in numbers. Alhamdulillah, I had 3 of the best scholars of hadith. 3 of the best. And one of the best is still with me, and that's Sheikh Mustafa Morsi Abu Attayib, alhamdulillah. So let's look at the history here. We're going to talk about the Jews of Medina. Remember, I told you guys, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from Mecca. He was from the Qurayshi tribe. When his people migrated from Mecca to Medina, the Jews were living amongst the Arabs in Medina, and they had been living there for centuries, for decades. And there were 3 Jewish tribes. You had the tribe of Kenuka, you had the tribe of Nadir, and then you had the tribe of Kureka. Okay? These were the 3 Jewish tribes that originally came to Medina, where only the Arabs had lived. And when they came to the Medina, they talked with the descendants of 2 brothers, one from the Aus tribe of Arabs and the other from the Hazraj tribe. And they asked the Arabs if for a corner of Medina to be given to them so they could populate it. And the Arabs agreed to this. The Arabs agreed. And so the Jews were shown a region where they could live and multiply. However, as time passed, the Jews began to make problems. They were not living at peace in that area that had been given to them. And they initiated and instigated a lot of trouble between the 2 different tribes of Arabs, the Aus and the Hazraj. Okay, that's the history. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, those 2 Arab tribes were fighting in a bloody war. You had the Aus and the Hazraj fighting against each other. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mediated and arbitrated and worked out the problems between those 2 tribes. And then after he worked out the problems and had those 2 Arabic tribes go into a peace agreement, he then met with the Jews, and he went into a peace treaty with the Jews, the 3 different Jewish tribes too. According to this agreement, if any attack was ever made on the city of Medina, all sides would act together and defend it against whoever the enemy was. Everyone would settle their own internal disputes, and they could use their own religious representatives. And the only time that they would come to the prophet is if they couldn't resolve it. So this was the peace treaty. This was the agreement that the prophet put in effect for the 2 Arab tribes that were fighting and killing each other, and the 3 Jewish tribes. And at first, the Jews welcomed the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he first came to Medina, they welcomed him with open arms, because all those years, all those decades of living amongst the Arabs, the Jews never understood why they worshiped idols. The Jews had been trying to get the Arabs to stop worshiping idols and to worship the one Allah. The one Allah. The Arabs believed in Allah, but they didn't believe that Allah was the only one worthy of worship. So the Jews wanted to meet this man. They wanted to meet this man who was able to convince these people that the only one worthy of worship is Allah. So they welcomed the prophet at first out of curiosity. But then it led to jealousy. When they realized that by the prophet and his people migrating there from Mecca, they realized that now the Arabs had the upper hand in Medina, that the Jews were now the minority, whereas before they were the majority. And that's when the problems began. Let's take a look. The first of those three Jewish tribes to break the agreement of peace were the tribe of Kenuka. They could not accept the fact that the Muslims had defeated the Quraysh at the Battle of Badr during the second year that they had came there. Like I said, they realized what a mistake they made welcoming him and his followers, because now he and his followers had the upper hand. But they didn't worry too much. They said, well, the Quraysh are going to fight against them. The Quraysh will defeat them because they don't have that many followers. But they could not accept the fact that the Muslims were victorious. And so what they did was this, and this can be found in Sahih Bukhari. The tribe of Kenuka they viciously attacked a Muslim woman who was in the market shopping for jewelry at a jeweler's. And by them viciously attacking that Muslim woman, that's when the war against the Muslims started. And how did the Prophet end it? The Prophet ﷺ ended this war by expelling the whole tribe of Kenuka. He exiled them. He kicked them out of Medina. He said, you people are no longer allowed to live here. Get out. You broke the treaty. You attacked a Muslim woman viciously. Get out. So he exiled them. And after that, the Muslims ended up fighting against the Quraysh, the Battle of Uhud. This was the third year of the migration. But in this battle, the Muslims were not victorious. And this is when the tribe of Nadir, the second Jewish tribe, the tribe of Nadir, they decided to kill the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, they were known for that. The Jews were known for killing prophets, taking out leaders. This is when they tried to drop the rock on his head. As the children in my Sunnahfollowers kids class learned this weekend, as the Prophet was sitting and talking with his couple of his companions, they planned to drop a rock on his head to kill him. But Allah foiled their plans. Allah sent the angel Jibril, who told the Prophet what they were doing, and the Prophet moved and the rock didn't hit him. You'll find that story in Bukhari and Muslim too. And so what happened as a result of that? As a result of that, the Prophet kicked them out. He said, oh, you guys want to play these games too? Well, guess what? Y'all kicked out of Medina too. So he kicked out the tribe of Nadir, just like he did the tribe of Kenuka. So that left just one Jewish tribe in Medina. And that was the tribe of Qurayza. And this was during the Battle of the Trench. This was the 5th year after the migration. What happened with these Jews, they made a peace agreement with the Quraysh. And they told the Quraysh that they would help them to defeat the Muslims by attacking the Muslims from the rear. But again, Allah exposed them in their plans. And after repelling the 10,000 strong army of the Quraysh, the Muslims then marched against the tribe of Qurayza to settle this score. And this ended up in a battle. And after a long siege, the Jews were forced to surrender. They surrendered it from the castle that they had hid out in. And so what did the prophet do to them? He kicked them out too. He kicked them out too. All of this you can find. This is all history you'll find in Bukhari and Muslim and Muwatta. So thus, after expelling all three of these tribes, only Arabs were left in Medina. And most of the Arabs were Muslim. However, the Jews who had been kicked out of Medina, they still wanted revenge. Where did they go? I want y'all to look at this picture. This is the picture of Khaybar. When the prophet kicked them out of Medina, they went and lived here. These are the mountains and hills of Khaybar. Okay? That's where they went to live. They gathered around here, and they did not refrain from showing enmity towards the Muslims whenever they got the chance. So this place that you see in this picture, this is known as Khaybar. Khaybar became a hive of intrigue because this is where the Jews went who were exiled, and they lived here in these mountains, and they kept all kind of fitna going. Okay? Also, during the Battle of the Trench, those Jews who the prophet had kicked out of Medina, the two tribes that were kicked out, they had turned to other Arabic tribes and asked them to help them to attack the prophet and the Muslims in Medina. But those other Arabic tribes refused. They didn't want to get involved. Okay? But the Hudaybiyah treaty with that the Muslims drew up with the Quraysh gave hope to the Jews. And this happened during the 6th year after migration. That gave the Jews hope that they could attack the Muslims off guard. And again, this is Khaybar. This picture here, these are the mountains of Khaybar. Y'all see it's rock and stuff. So the Jews thought that because the Muslims thought that they were living in such peace, that they could attack them, catch them off guard. Okay? And so the Jews began to prepare their army, and they made their plans to try to destroy the Muslims. They sent envoys between Ghatafan and Mecca to try to get people to help them. And in reaction to this is when the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Abdullah ibn Riwaha to Khaybar to negotiate a peace settlement with all three of the tribes of Jews that were there. However, the Jews, thinking they had a lot of support from the Arabs, they refused. And that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam announced to the companions to prepare for the battle of Khaybar. He said, let only those who want to struggle in the way of Allah come with us, because we got to take care of them once and for all. These three tribes of Jews are not going to stop pestering us. We have to do something. But Medina is positioned between Khaybar and Mecca. So if a battle was to be fought, Khaybar presented a great danger for the Muslims, okay, because they could sneak up from behind and Mecca was the front. So it put the Muslims in a very vulnerable position. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered together his army and he set out to conquer Khaybar Castle. He had 1,400 men with him on foot, and he had 200 cavalry. And this happened in the 7th year after his migration. He also took with him 20 women, and amongst them was Aisha radiallahu anha, And also some of the other wives. Of course, Salama was there. She was there as his advisor and a warrior. Zainab went too. A lot of the women went to be nurses, to serve as nurses, to look after the wounded. The army arrived in Khaybar at night. And I want y'all to pay attention to this. Let's talk about this for a second. A lot of you ask, why is it that it seems like Allah does not give victory to the Muslims? Well, the Prophet told us, if ever we violate the laws of Allah, Allah will never send the angels to help us in our battles. He said, we Muslims, we will always be the minority. We will always be outnumbered. But as long as we stick to our faith, our belief system, and as long as we do not transgress the laws of Allah in warfare or anything else, then Allah will send angels to help us. The Prophet Muhammad, how many of you knew this? The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, never, ever, ever, I repeat, never, ever, ever, I repeat again, he never attacked an enemy at night. The reason being, he said, because too many innocents could be harmed. Even though the Prophet arrived at Khaybar at night, Umar approached him and said, oh, Prophet, we can get them now while they're asleep, while they don't expect us. The Prophet said, no, Umar. Too many innocents could be killed. Children are sleeping. Women are with their babies. He said, we will wait till after Fajr. We will attack them in the daytime. This is important. Islam is about justice. War brings about casualties. But the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was all about minimizing the casualties as best he could. He said, why should we raid upon them when they sleeping and their wives get killed, their children get trampled? We'll wait and let them face us in the daytime. Is this what the Hamas did? Did the Hamas attack at night, people? Did they make their attack in the daytime? Or did they make their attack at night? You know, my thing is, you want Allah to be on your side. You cannot transgress his limits. Like Umar, radiallahu anhu, told his army, don't transgress Allah's limits, because the upper hand that we have over the Persians is our iman, our belief in Allah. As long as you hold firm to that, we'll get victory. Transgress it one little bit. Do one little thing against what he says, and we'll lose the whole battle. Think about it. Y'all want to learn how to deal with times of hardship. Yeah, like I told y'all, there's nothing that's going on this planet today that didn't already happen with the Prophet and those companions. Okay? So, he waited. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam waited until after Fajr. When Fajr came, the Jews were shocked. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom they thought was away in Medina, had arrived at their very door with his army. He set up camp in a region that is known as Raji, between Khaybar and Ghatafan, to prevent Ghatafan from sending for help. So the Jews were trapped. And as a result of the siege, and by the way, this siege lasted days. Guess what? The Muslims began to run out of food. They didn't have food. They didn't have water. Sound familiar? They didn't have food. They didn't have water. Sound familiar? They didn't have food. They didn't have water. And they lost their strength and their energy. Y'all see that there? You want to know what to do. How to handle what's going on in Palestine. No water, no food. What do we do? Let's just put the dead babies up. Let's just go blow up some buildings. Oh, let's kill myself. Oh. What did the prophet do? The Muslims were hemmed up there for days. No food, no water in the desert. What did they do? Let's take it. At this point, the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced his men and he said, tomorrow I will place our standard in the hand of one whom Allah will bless with the conquest of Khaybar. That person loves Allah and his prophet, and Allah and his prophet loves them. And what was the standard? Was the flag of the prophet, the flag of Medina? And by the way, every Arabic tribe had a standard. Every tribe had its standard, its flag. The Quraysh had their flag. The Ansar had their tribal flag before Islam. The Jews had their tribal flag of Palestine. Let's say Palestine. What was the standard of the Prophet Muhammad? Does anybody know? He was fighting for Medina. He had no food, no water. His army was dying off, some of them, from that. Did they wrap the flag of Mecca and Medina around them? No. His standard was La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. What does that mean? When we declare that, that means my allegiance is not to no country. My allegiance is not to no part of the earth. My allegiance is to Allah, to the prophet, and all believers on this planet. That was the standard of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his army. They never carried a flag of Mecca. They never carried a flag of Medina. This is my dalil. Everything I teach you guys, I got dalil. Oh, Layla got dalil for everything she said. My whole life has been nothing but locked up in a house learning hadiths from real scholars, not wannabes. Okay? So the standard of the Muslim army was La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, because Islam is supposed to bring about unity. I don't just care about Palestine. I care about America. I care about China. I care about Yemen. I care about Nigeria. I care about Uzbekistan. I care about anywhere where there's a Muslim. So that's why the Prophet didn't use a country or a city flag. We fight for all Muslims everywhere. Y'all understand that? Our solidarity is for them all. That's the first mistake y'all making. And for you brothers out there listening to me, you call yourself scholars of this deen, you better check yourself. You done forgot these hadiths. Where are these hadiths at? What's my source? What's her source? Bukhari and Muslim. Just those two books. My whole class is based off Bukhari and Muslim. I could have used others, but so you people can't come and cut me up. Bukhari and Muslim. Y'all better learn y'all deen. Get off of them fatwa online sites and learn this sunnah. That's the standard. And what did the Prophet do? Because they had no food. They had no water. They were hemmed up. Let's continue. He said, tomorrow I will place our standard in the hand of someone who Allah will bless with victory. And that person is someone who really loves Allah. That's the key. He loves Allah. And the prophet are those men who are fighting the Hamas. Do they really love Allah? Do they really love the prophet? Or do they love the earth? Are you fighting for Allah? Or are you fighting because you think that you own a piece of this earth? Everything we do, guys, is supposed to be done for the sake of Allah. Our prayers for Allah, our fast for Allah, not for no Palestine. Our everything, my deeds, everything I do is for you, my Lord. It ain't for nothing else. If it's for anything other than Allah, Allah ain't giving no victory. And that's the lesson. That's the lesson that Allah has been trying to instill into the hearts of the people that live in that part of the world since the time of Solomon. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Since the time of Solomon and Jacob, Allah's been trying to teach the people in Israel, in that part of the world, Israel, that the earth belongs to me, not to you. And until you understand that, there will be havoc until Jesus comes back. Y'all get it? Everything that's happening is because Allah willed it. You can't stop it. You can't change it. All you can do is make it worse, which you will make it worse. You'll make it be everywhere because of your emotions and your abandonment of these hadiths, your forgetfulness of this sunnah. Okay? So let's continue. And by the way, this is the standard. How did the standard of the prophet look? It was this on a white cloth, a black cloth, I think. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's the standard of Islam. It's not Palestine. It's not Egypt. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's not America. It's not Turkey. It's La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, the foundation of our existence. That's the standard of the prophet. That's the standard of Islam. When Jesus does come back, that will be Jesus' standard. When the Mahdi does come, this will be the standard of the Mahdi. The Mahdi will not be walking around, guys, dressed in Palestinian flags. The Mahdi will not have a Palestinian flag nowhere near him. Neither will Jesus. They'll have this standard. This standard. This standard. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam shared these words with the companions, they became excited. They said all of them wanted to be the one to carry the flag. They said because whoever is going to carry it is someone who really loves Allah. And by loving Allah, that means this is a person that would never transgress his limits. This is a person that would never transgress the limits of the prophet. And it's also someone who Allah and the prophet loves because of that. And the next morning, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave that standard to Ali. And Ali rode out to Khaybar. And those 8 castles were taken without a struggle. You see what happens when we do for the sake of Allah. Allah will cause miracles to happen. Now, the Muslims went without food. The Muslims went without water. Y'all know they didn't have no electricity back then. They didn't have no internet. They didn't have no TV. They didn't even have medical supplies. So the people said, oh, prophet, what do we do? We're not going to survive this. No water, no food. I'm going to give this standard to one of you who is so strong in your iman, so strong in your practice, that would never violate the sanctions of Allah. And that person will bring us victory. It was Ali. And all Ali did was walk out there and they surrendered. No fighting even occurred. Those Jews dropped their swords and they just surrendered. See the miracle. Allah is in control. Israel doesn't control nothing. America doesn't control nothing. Trump doesn't control anything. Biden doesn't control anything. Allah is the controller. He's the one that can change the hearts of man too. Allah sets the scenario. He creates it to see what you gonna do. Remember, war. This is a means of testing. Who are the believers amongst you? Ali was a believer. They dropped their swords and surrendered. So thus, from this miracle, okay, those 8 castles were taken. 2 were taken without a struggle. And in this battle, the Jews died while only a few Muslims were killed. Again, Allah will send the angels as long as you don't transgress his limits. Now, let me tell you what happened after this. After the victory of Khaybar, the Jews requested to continue to work the land as sharecroppers. So, being the compassionate man he was, the prophet didn't kill them. He didn't behead them. He didn't blow them up. He didn't cut out their entrails. Okay? He said, okay, I'll let you guys work the land. You know, I'm not going to expel everybody from Khaybar. I'm going to just get the bad ones out. But for you good ones, the ones that is not as bad, I'm going to let you work the land, but you got to divide it up. Whatever you come up with, a certain amount will come to us. And so the Jews were allowed to stay on Khaybar and work the land, you know, and as long as half their earnings were given to the Muslims. And this continued until the Caliphate of Umar, radiallahu anhu. Do Muslims show this type of consideration? A lot of Muslims like to behead their hostages. The Prophet didn't kill hostages. He ransomed them off, okay, or let them go. Because again, that ain't no fun. That ain't good. That's not just. Islam is about justice, okay? He said, okay, I'll let some of you stay. The rest of you guys get out, but I'll keep these and let them work the land, okay? Also, among the prisoners of war taken at Khaybar was Safiyya radiallahu anha, the daughter of Hunayy. She had been captured with her cousin by Bilal. Where's the source? Where's the source, Layla? This is Sahih Bukhari. Safiyya radiallahu anha was taken as a prisoner of war with her cousin by Bilal. And Bilal brought them both to the Prophet. And as Bilal was bringing them from the battlefield, these 2 women saw their dead relatives. When they saw their friends and their family lying dead on the ground, the women began to scream and they cried and they began to throw themselves on top of their relatives. And when they reached the prophet asked them, "Why are you screaming and crying?" And this is right after his sister came too. And they said, and he's looked at Bilal and said, "Oh, Bilal, has Allah removed mercy from your heart?" And the prophet said, "Safiyya, if you like, convert to Islam and I will marry you. But if you want, you can remain a Jew and I will set you free and you can return to your tribe." See the compassion of our prophet. The prophet, when she was brought before him, he knew she was a noble woman because she was the daughter of the king of the tribe, and her cousin was with her. And at this time, this is when his sister Shema had come to him too. And these two women just confirmed that his men, had transgressed by allowing the women to see the dead on the bodies on the field. And that's when the prophet put out the law: do not drag the prisoners through the battlefield to see their fallen family and friends. This is no compassion. Islam is about justice. So what would he say about you ridiculous, emotional, uneducated, uncouth Muslims posting dead people on your Facebook pages? And the people you posting are Muslims. He got offended that they dragged them through the Kafir battlefield. You posting the dead bodies of Muslims and babies at that. You people are sick. Like he told Bilal, "Where's your compassion?" Well, you people ain't got none. Y'all never had none to begin with. Just sick. So I'm going to stop right here. At this point, Safiyya was brought before the prophet as a prisoner of war. She is the daughter of the chief. The prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, recognizing her stature, he looked at her and said, marry me, and I'll make you my wife. Or if you want, don't marry me, and I'll set you free." And the reason being is because he knew that she was the daughter of a prophet, and he would never imprison, never enslave a daughter of a prophet. Hello. We don't care about where we come from. We don't care about the lineage or the status of someone else. You know, we formulate our likes and dislikes based on our jealousies, based on our ignorances. We wonder why Allah doesn't give us victory as Muslims. Do we sound like these companions? When y'all turn on the TV and look at the Hamas or look at any of them, even Syria, look at any of it. Is it being conducted like this? Do they raid at night like cowards? Or do they raid in the daytime like the prophet did? Let them see us coming so they can move the children, move the weak. Why would you want to take those people over there that ain't doing nothing? No. Let them prepare. Do we fight this way? Or do we come down the sky at night like Superman, like, what's that? Tom Cruise. We too busy trying to be Batman. Tom Cruise. We gonna come down at nighttime. The cowardly way. Imitating Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. Instead of imitating the Prophet Muhammad and be a man. Face them head on so they can move those innocents out the way. There's rules in war, guys. Don't let the kafir deceive you and make you think that there is no rules when it comes to war. Oh, we Muslims are different. We do have rules. And until we abide by them, we'll never be helped by Allah in them. Put that in your pipe. You weak men with your flags, wrap up. I got mine. My wrapping is hijab and abaya for everyone, all Muslims. All right, I'm going to stop right here. The next week, we're going to go into her marriage. But this is what led up to her marriage. All this is the history. This history is all taken from Bukhari. I could have went to other books, but this is all out of Bukhari because I memorized them all by heart. And I know the history, okay? Y'all better start learning these hadiths. You better start learning the Sunnah. Find a hadith teacher. There ain't that many around. Most of them are dead. But you better attach to somebody who's a scholar of hadith and learn the Sunnah so you can handle yourself the correct way as a Muslim. All right. Any questions or comments? Questions, comments? And these brothers should be talking like this. I'm the only one out here doing these type of classes. This is what you men supposed to be doing. Y'all supposed to be big shot scholars. You supposed to be famous scholars. What's up? Don't y'all know these hadiths? They simple. I learned them when I was 12. This is just Bukhari. I could go into more stuff. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, we're going to close out here for tonight, guys. And I want y'all to think about the classes here today were pretty good because I'm hoping as a daya that I'm giving you guys the insight and the strength to handle yourselves with dignity during these trying times. We have to make dua for all the Muslims on earth, the ones in Palestine, China, everywhere. Pray for all the believers, like the prophet said, the believers on earth. Okay? And then we have to check ourselves. I want everybody to do homework tonight. I want y'all to ask yourself, am I an ally of Allah or am I an ally of Shaitan? Okay? Am I living my life the way Allah would want me to live it? Or have I deviated away from that I'm way out here and I'm part of the problem? Am I part of the problem or part of the cause? Am I too emotional? Or am I basing my actions and my choices on the Quran and Sunnah? Am I functioning with the understanding that those companions had? Or is my understanding what Sheikh Kamadama does in fatwa is saying? We have to have the understanding of the companions, guys. The understanding of Safiyya, the understanding of Juwayriya, Aisha, Salama, Khalid bin Walid, Umar, Abu Bakr. We have to have their understanding as to how to handle ourselves. Not to understand that these famous celebrity nobodies are telling y'all. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for tonight, inshallah. Tomorrow is what? Thursday. We have the 6 o'clock class, and we have my 9 o'clock class tomorrow. I'm not going to do the hadith class tonight because this was so much for me that, I mean, this is a lot I've been doing today. I mean, this was a lot. I need to take a break. You know, it gets me all geeked up. You know, I got to ungeek it. I got to let my hair down, as they say, get ungeeked and chill. Okay, so the hadith class I won't do tonight. We'll save that for tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to close out. Inshallah, please support this dawah effort, guys. If you enjoy coming here to learn Islam in its truthfulness with the understanding of the companions, please support us by scanning that QR code. And also, guys, please share my videos, share my lectures. I know I'm just a woman. I'm just a girl in the world. I'm just a girl. They ain't gonna listen to me, but try to share it. Maybe somebody will listen, you know, that can be reminded, you know, as to how to handle themselves during these times without making a fool of themselves and transgressing the limits. So try to share my videos and my shorts and my website and my YouTube channel with people that you know. All right, so I'm going to close out. Subhanakala humo wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. I'll be in the Zoom room if anybody